Okay. Thank you for joining us today. I'll call the April 11th, 2024 meeting of the Police Advisory and Oversight Board to order. Let's begin with introduction of commission members.
Conrad Thomas.
Todd Spellberg.
Lucretia King.
Joanna Johnson.
Dave Hoganson.
Tanya Graywind.
And Scott is
And Scott Paul is dialed in from Madrid.
Oh, nice. Look, he's on the video. It's awesome. All right. So the next item is to approve the agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay. All right. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay. Motion is carried. Next item is to approve the minutes of the March 14th, 2024 meeting. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. No opposed. So the motion is carried. The next item is public comment. Those who wish to address the Police Advisory and Oversight Board must use the sign-in sheet. You must state your name. It will be limited to 3 minutes. Do we have anyone signed up for?
Oh, we did not.
Okay. And then we didn't have any questions from the community members this session, but I think there might be something coming up the line for next one, right? Yeah. Okay. The next item on the agenda is the police department updates, and we'll let DC Anderson speak to his items.
Yes, thank you for having me this afternoon. So what I'm going to touch on is probably the topic that is probably of most of interest for all of you. I'll be giving you a brief overview of the Department of Justice COPS CRI-TAC assessment that started in late February. We had, when I say we, the CRI-TAC office selected a firm, a consultation firm out of Chicago called Jensen Hughes. And I've had bi-monthly meetings, phone meetings with representatives from that agency to get this process rolling. And on April 1st, they came to Fargo and were with us Monday through Thursday, where they conducted on-site interviews with, I believe, most, if not all of you. They might not have gotten all of you, but they also talked to key city members, mayor, city administrator, Dr. Hogan, also key personnel within the Fargo Police Department as well. That is an ongoing process which will continue more or less virtually going forward. The purpose of it is obviously they're looking at our policies and procedures in relations to critical incidents being defined as officer-involved shootings, pursuits that may involve serious bodily injury or death, or any in-custody type deaths or suicides. Those are kind of things that we would define as a critical incident. As Chief Zabolski explained earlier, that the CRI-TAC assessment would not look at a singular incident. So I know July 8th, 2022 was obviously a singular incident which brought up a lot of questions, concerns, but obviously we had a follow-on incident, I believe August 1st, that was the Mapleton OIS incident, officer-involved shooting. And then obviously we've had the July 14th incident with Officer Jake Walline and Officer Zach Robinson. So they are looking at those three incidents, obviously taking a very comprehensive look at the incidents that happened within the city of Fargo. The Mapleton one is a Cass County incident, and it's unknown at what level Sheriff Johnner and his team will be participating with the CRI-TAC assessment. However, we'll be getting a written draft copy at some point in the future. Once they started The process, it takes about a 16-week to complete it. So I'm anticipating sometime the end of end of June or mid-June before we'd likely see a draft of the final product with their recommendations regarding any policy revisions regarding our uses, I don't say our use of force, but our critical responses in regards to OIS's officer-involved shootings. They also took a deeper dive into pre and post-incident response. So what training have we done for our officers to handle a critical incident, post-incident, how we are handling wellness components, how are we taking care of our officers. I know they've reached out to our contracted police psychologist to get an assessment or to speak to her on the process as well. So I think it's going to be a very comprehensive document when it's completed. And like I said, this is, as I explained during the agenda setting, this is not the Department of Justice coming in and doing a dissent or a consent decree. This is something that we reached out to the Department of Justice, the Community-Oriented Policing Services Office for what they call, obviously CRITAC, critical, if I get this acronym right, Collaborative Reform Initiative, Critical Response. So anything that what they put on paper is not binding. It's a recommendation coming from them, from their office, as far as potentially best practices that we could implement within our agency. And so at this point, I guess without rambling any further, I'll take any questions that the board may have regarding the CRITAC process.
Yeah, I did meet with the auditor, or the auditors, or just, I don't really know the right term. Investigator, consultant, yeah.
Consultants?
Yeah. We did, I did get an opportunity to meet with them, and so I'll be excited to see what they come up. I think they're also looking at the board,
Yes, and I was surprised at how extensive they're looking at. I mean, they're looking at a wide array of, obviously the accountability board, but policies, and not just critical response policies. It's our peer assistance, it's our training, it's across the board. So I think it's going to be a pretty comprehensive review and with some nice recommendations.
That's great. Just like Joanna, I'm really excited for this review. I think it's going to provide some truly consequential improvement in how we support our officers and how we support you guys. And we're really excited to learn what they come up with and help you all deliver exceptional service to Fargo. So with that, I have a question that is pretty important, and it was concerning to me because I also met with the same two team members from the plan last week. And to get to my question, I have to to provide some context around my question. I kind of want to lead you through how we got here, which is, it's been 14 months, so it's been a while. And the public has been asking, and so I just want to just go through how we got here. And of course, in the aftermath of the O'Brien shooting and the Netterville death, we found there was damaged trust within the city, and the extent of that damaged trust was really vividly communicated to all of us at our listening session. We had that listening session on January 25th of 2023. And then, of course, along with that, the Human Rights Commission was calling for an independent investigation, as did I. And so it became untenable that just wasn't going to happen. The chief and I had some discussion about the collaborative reform, and then the chief with the board had some further discussion. And on February 9th of last year, the chief informed the board about the proposed work plan that he had requested. That was at the February 9th meeting. Here's the concerning part. He told the board that the work plan was to include use of force policy as it relates to all critical incidents in general, and specifically use of force policy as it relates to the Officer O'Brien shooting. And I actually wrote it down because I went back and looked at the video. So that's a quote. So, and part of my problem is when I was meeting with the two team members from Jensen Hughes last week, they asked what I was most encouraged by, and I thought that use of force was, and the policy around that was really a good thing to look at from the O'Brien shooting of Netterville. What can we learn? And then also the following, almost a year later, of course, there was the ambush where everything went right, and what can we learn from that? And they looked at me, there were crickets chirping. They were looking at me and they said, we're not looking at use of force. And I responded, I wrote this down too. I said, I don't understand. Review and evaluation of the department's use of force policy is precisely what our board asked for. And it was the primary focus in Chief Zabolski's request. And I said, I don't understand. Isn't this what your team does? And they responded back to me, yeah, it's exactly what this team does, except your police department didn't ask for that. And so I'm really confused because I did some further checking, and in the department's 2023 annual review that was presented to the City Commission on March 18th, again, the chief states that because of the board's advice, we're looking at use of force policy as it relates to critical incidents and the O'Brien shooting. So I'm wondering if you could circle back with the chief and get this remedied, because that's what I was most encouraged by, that we were going to look at use of force and the policy around that.
Yeah, I'd be more than happy to speak to the chief, but I have my meeting with Jensen Hughes tomorrow morning. So I'll be more than happy to reengage that issue with them, just so that we're all have an understanding of what use of force incidents, critical incidents, what that really means, right? Because when I think of use of force, I mean, that's a broad array of things, right? So I think what we're talking is obviously the use of force in regards to officer-involved shootings, the critical incidents, July 8th of 2022, Adam O'Brien's incident, and then obviously the July 14th, but to some extent also the August 1st. So I'll follow up with them and just see where maybe we missed some things.
My biggest concern, and this might not be something you can answer tonight, but this whole process started, 14 months ago. And so I'd be curious to know if the use of force can be added to this current project and move forward there, or are we going to have the use of force policy review? Is that going to be a brand new request, and are we going to wait months for that?
Well, I do know that they have our use of force policy. I did supply that to them.
Okay.
So that's something that they should have. And I know through our bi-monthly meetings, they said that they've reviewed the documentation that I have provided them, and I did provide them information, the BCI reports and whatever information we had relative to those three incidents. So they should have that already. So it should be a fairly easy conversation and try to get some clarification with them.
Yeah, it would be good because they were very clear. They both said to me, review of use of force policy is not within the scope of our project. So it's a big deal. I mean, I don't know how that got missed.
Well, David, in the November meeting, when the chief had his first meeting with the SME people, and he talked to them the first time. He did mention in our meeting that he was talking about, he said they're gonna look at critical incidents and officer-involved shooting. So I know he might have used use of force in February, but use of force language wasn't used in November.
But you got to remember, use of force policy review
Right.
was the exact language in the report that he gave to the city commission less than a month ago. So it's a communication
Yeah.
gap somewhere.
Yeah, and maybe a terminology issue as well, too, like, I know.
No, it's not terminology. They're very focused on terminology, and that they just said, no, it's not covered. So
Yeah. It would be good to find out if we would have to request a separate type of report. That's what they told me. It would have been a separate request, because there's different types of assessments that they can do. And this one is mostly an after-action assessment of critical incidents. So there's other levels that would be a more top-to-bottom approach. So that might wind up being a separate request from the chief if you want to look into use of force.
okay. Yeah, I think it's so important, Deputy Chief Anderson, because we had, obviously, the BCI report said that the action was justified, O'Brien's action justified, and internally here locally, your department found no policies were broken, and yet we had this tragic outcome. And so when everybody did what they thought was okay, and you still have a tragic outcome, in my mind, that's the time you look at policy. So what can we do to change policy to help support our officers' actions during a critical incident? That's where I'm coming from.
No, absolutely. And like I said, I have my meeting tomorrow morning. I'll circle back with them. I'll update Sergeant Gamrat, who can relay that information along to the chair. And like I said, Chief Zabolski will be back in the office on Monday, so I can circle back with him and have a conversation about the intent of what was requested from the COPS office.
Okay, appreciate
Cry
that.
attack
I
assessment.
just have one more question to clarify. These are just recommendations, and you do not have to follow these recommendations? Is that how we to understand it?
Correct. These would be recommendations or potentially best practices to implement. Like I said, this is not the Department of Justice coming in and giving us a consent decree where we would have to follow those. This is the COPS office, Community Oriented Policing Services, their collaborative reform initiative. I don't know why I struggle with that. But their CRITAC initiative, the assessment. So these, like I said, these are merely recommendations, best practices of, like I said, how we can improve. There might be things that are already best practices that we're doing where they can highlight that, or they may make suggestions on things where maybe we're deficient, and then we can work towards improving those aspects. But until that final report is released, we won't know.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Anything else? Any other questions from the board? No? Okay. Well, the next item on the agenda is the Fargo Police presentation, officer complaint review process, I believe. And DC Anderson will present that to us today.
All right, I don't have the specific dates, but as a result of, I believe it was a city commission meeting where a few individuals had come forward to complain about some police interactions. Specifically, the name Johnny Cooper may come to mind. There were at least two, there was at least two incidents, complaints that were separate. However, they revolved around the name Johnny Cooper. Two of those two individuals that made the complaints were not Johnny Cooper. One of them was Michael Wiles, and the other one is Abenico K. I will be focusing on the Abenico K. He does have two complaints. In the interest of time, I will try to cover both of them, but if I can't, I will do my best to make sure I cover formal complaint 24-2. That is probably the main one of interest. So just kind of giving you the background. So on January 10th, 2024, at about 8:47 in the morning, Officer Duncan, who's a 2-year officer, initiated a traffic stop on a vehicle that vehicle did not have its front license plate displayed properly. It was laying on its front dash. That is in violation of North Dakota Century Code as well as Fargo Municipal Ordinance. Your front license plate needs to be attached to your vehicle and displayed as closely in a vertical position as possible. In this case, it was laying on the dash. Upon the traffic stop, the female passenger exits the car. What's unknown to the officer at that time, the traffic stop happens in the Sleep Inn and Suites parking lot, front lobby area, or the where the front lobby is. What we don't know, or what the officer didn't know, is that female worked at Sleep Inn and Suites. The officer, Officer Duncan, asked her to return to the car, and she does, and she stands more towards the end of the vehicle. Officer Duncan makes contact with the driver, asks him for a driver's license. He does not have a driver's license on him, which is another violation of North Dakota Century Code and Fargo Municipal Ordinance. You are required to have your state-issued driver's license upon you when asked by a licensed law enforcement officer. However, the driver does identify himself. He gives the officer his name and date of birth and says that his name is Abenico K. Officer takes that information back to a squad car and runs the information on his MDC, which is the mobile data terminal within the car. When he does that, he gets an alert through our CAD RMS system that Abenico K is an alias for Johnny Cooper. Johnny Cooper has an alert for an open Cass County and Fargo warrant. Officer Duncan compared the booking photos of K and Cooper and believed K to be Cooper based off of those photos. Eventually, Officer Duncan arrests K and begins to transport him to the Cass County Jail. Prior to departure, K is kicking at the squad window and the side windows, so at that point, Officer Duncan requests Sergeant Mock to respond to the scene. Sergeant Mock instructs Officer Duncan to pull over and wait for him. Part of the reason for that is Officer Duncan does not conduct a search incident to arrest on Mr. K, and that has been a training issue that we're trying to resolve within the department, that once you make a physical arrest of someone, you do search that person, search incident to arrest. So once Sergeant Mock gets on scene, he is able to determine that Mr. K is not Johnny Cooper. He's unarrested, so we no longer have probable cause to make that arrest, and then he's released. At that point, Mr. K refuses to get out of the vehicle, the squad car, for approximately 40 minutes. After being released, he's given ample opportunity to get out. We leave the squad car doors open. He proceeds to shut them numerous times, and eventually a plan is implemented to physically pull him out of the car after that 40 minutes. He is not arrested, and nor is he cited. So that happened on the 10th. So on January 11th, Mr. K comes to the lobby to complete a complaint against Officer Duncan. He's accompanied by his girlfriend, Juanetta Foley. She is the female that is on the traffic stop with him. The allegation that Mr. K makes is that every one of his rights were violated. He was injured, he was discriminated against, falsely arrested, unjustly detained for an unreasonable amount of time. So the applicable policy violation, the alleged policy violation, would be exceeding lawful police officer powers by unreasonable, unlawful, or excessive conduct. So that's what Officer Duncan was informed of, the policy violation that was being investigated against him. Our PAU sergeant, Sergeant Matt Siders, met with Mr. K and Fully at the police station to obtain their statements and to get an interview from them. That interview is recorded. To start or to conduct the investigation, Sergeant Siders reviewed the incident reports, the photos, report supplements, the radio traffic, the body camera footage, and the fleet footage from Officer Duncan Adair, Officer Dosh, Sergeant Mock. Lieutenant Aberly is one of the officers, I believe, who took the initial complaint. And then obviously Sergeant Siders has body camera footage as well. We also followed up by interviewing Officer Duncan Adair, Dosh, and Sergeant Mock. And we looked at the photos that were in the CAD RMS system for Abenico K and as well as Johnny Cooper. And again, when we run Abenico K, it immediately pops up as an alias for Johnny Cooper. In a matter of time and interest, the body camera is 1 hour and 25 minutes long, so I will not be showing you the entire body camera. However, I'll be showing you the initial 3-minute traffic stop, the initial encounter, and then I'll be showing you intermittent portions of the traffic stop and as well as Sergeant Mock's body camera footage.
Fargo, San Juan, South Dakota side.
Fargo, 711, go ahead.
Be in the Sleep Inn and Suites off 23rd Avenue South, 153 David Zebra Paul, North Dakota. Hang on just a second.
Can we talk inside?
What's that?
Can we talk inside?
Here, just come stand back over here.
Oh.
Stand back over here. Who else is in the car? Hello. Hi, I'm Officer Duck with the Fargo Police Department. I stopped you because your front plate is not displayed properly. It's completely hidden in there. Do you have your driver's license and insurance with you, sir? Okay. Do you want to stand in front of the car for me, ma'am?
I want to talk inside.
Okay. Well, next time a police officer stops you, don't jump out of the car right away.
I'm going to work.
Right now, you're detained because you're part of the traffic stop.
You did not tell me that.
Yep. That's just how it works. Just so you know.
Juanita, it's fine. You don't even got to talk to him.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? You don't even have to talk to him. You can get back in the car. You don't even have to talk to him. He has to talk to me.
Yep.
That's it.
I'll be right back, sir. Let me go
No.
run to my
Juanita,
job.
get in the car. Juanita, get in the car.
Away.
I have to keep my job, sir.
Okay. Go to jail.
Fargo, South.
Go to jail.
Second code one.
Stupid ass.
Because I'm trying to talk to him?
You
Get in the car. You don't need to talk to him. You don't need to talk to him.
Sir.
What the?
Just hang
You
up for a
literally
second.
don't need to talk to him.
If it's just he has a bad front plate, I'm gonna give him a warning. Y'all are gonna get out of
That's
here. I don't know why
it.
we're making it more difficult.
That's literally it. Why are you doing this? He told you to get in the car. What don't you understand about that?
Okay, what's going on?
It's crazy.
Bad day for y'all? Or?
No, man, just take my name and let's get this
Okay,
on the way
you
so I
said
can
you
get on
don't
my
have an
way.
ID.
Huh?
You
Yes,
don't-
I said I don't have my ID. Take my name.
Okay, do you have a valid driver's license or suspended?
Take my name and run the info, bro.
Okay, what's your name, man?
ABENICO.
That's your first or last?
First name.
Okay.
Last name KAYEE.
What's your middle name, dude?
I don't got a middle name.
And your birthday? You have North Dakota or Minnesota ID.
North Dakota.
Good phone number for you?
I don't got a phone number.
Good address?
I don't got an address.
Okay, insurance on the vehicle?
Yeah.
Can I see it real quick, please?
It was on her phone, but her phone is broke.
Okay, so
This is her car.
which company did you go through?
What? Primo or something like that.
Okay, gotcha.
Primero or something like that.
Okay, hey, I'll be right back with you, alright?
So I should have given you the heads up that I did mute the colorful language in the traffic stop, so that's where you will hear those pauses in the audio. I feel that was appropriate to play in this setting. So as well as per North Dakota Century Code open records request, there's some things that will show. So like the MDC screen is it's been redacted. date of births, addresses, phone numbers, they've all been redacted so that the individuals in here have their privacy. So just give you a heads up on that. So legal authority. We look at what is our officer's legal authority here. So we have a traffic violation. So the officer has reasonable suspicion that a traffic violation has been committed, and that is a reason for the stop. You need to, like I said, you need to clearly display your front license plate and your rear license plate per North Dakota Century Code and Municipal Ordinance. Per Wynetta Foley's complaint, she claims that the officer did not identify himself or say the reason for stop. It's clearly heard. Officer Duncan identifies himself to the driver and told the driver the reason for the stop. The driver then, you can see, reaches forward, in which I can only assume adjusts the front license plate on his dashboard. The driver did not have a DL in possession. That is another North Dakota Century Code violation in municipal ordinance. And regarding the stop itself, the Supreme Court of the United States has ruled time and time again that the driver and the passenger are considered seized relative to the traffic stop. You just don't get to walk away. They give the officer the authority to control the scene, and what I have there are the three Supreme Court cases that give the officers the jurisdiction to order Ms. Foley back to the car and to order everyone out of the car. So we do have the proper valid legal authority. So when the officer ran a Beneco K, you could see on the bottom there where it says person criteria, you see that the officer typed in the name. Up at the top, you will see that red banner, that red highlight, where it states Johnny Cooper alias K Beneco N. So that's what the officer saw. However, then you could see that there is Mr. K's mugshot. Approximately 180 pounds, 5'8". And then you can also pull up Johnny Cooper. About the same height, a little bit less in weight, but in wintertime it's hard to tell that. But again, this is what the officer is seeing at the time that he is making the traffic stop, understanding that he does not have a physical ID card to compare to. And that's, the officer does not have this opportunity to put these two pictures side by side. This is something that I did as a result of this presentation, but you can see the features between Mr. K and Mr. Cooper. So we get into the investigation, how this all started. We found back in 2017, Fargo Police Department on February 17th was dealing with Johnny Cooper, where he provided a name to the police officers at that time using Beneco K as his name. So that name, because a police report was done, and later found out that that was a alias that Johnny Cooper used, was then tied to Johnny Cooper as an alias. So Johnny Cooper alias Beneco K. So at some point the officer asked dispatch to run the party that he has in his run. So he added the name Beneco K into the run. Dispatch looks at that information and they're able to run Beneco K and says that he's negative, meaning that he does not have a warrant. However, they come back and say that Mr. K has got an alias of Johnny Cooper, and Johnny Cooper has unconfirmed warrant from Cass County and Fargo warrants. So the officer is digging in this further to try to ascertain the correct identity of the individual driving, Mr. K. So he goes back up to the car, asks him to get out. Mr. K asks why. Duncan asks him again to step out of the car, and at this time, for the most part, Beneco K, his hoodie is up the entire time. So you can't get a sense of what his hair looks like. So at some point, K asks Officer Duncan if he has a warrant. Officer Duncan replies yes. At that point, he gets out, and K alludes along the lines, Minnesota, right? Duncan says, no, North Dakota 4DS. He replies, what's that? He explains driving under suspension. K says, I've already taken care of that. He walks back to the squad car with Officer Duncan. He is detained. That is explained to him that he's being detained due to the warrant. They need to confirm that. He is placed in handcuffs. They stand outside of the vehicle for a little while, but eventually, due to the cold temperature, Mr. K elects to sit in the squad car. At this time, Officer Dare is speaking with Juanetta Foley at this time, and there's no discussion between those two about K versus Cooper's identity.
I'm just gonna have you hop out of the car real quick.
For what?
Hop out of the car.
For what?
I'll explain it all in just a second. Hop out of the car.
Do I have a warrant?
You do. Hop out of the car. Do you have any knives, guns, hand grenades, rabbit squirrels on you? Alright, so step back over here. I don't even know what they're gonna take you yet, man. Just a misdemeanor warrant.
From Minnesota, right?
No, from North Dakota.
For what?
For the U.S.
DUS, what's that?
Driving under suspension. We're gonna step back
I've already taken care of that.
Just watch what she's doing. Okay, step back over here.
I've already taken care of that. I don't
Pull
have...
her out too. Too much messing around. Okay, right now you're not arrested. You're just gonna be detained, so I'm gonna put you in handcuffs, okay?
Talking about I got one. What? I already taken care of all that shit.
Okay, well, we'll figure it out. I don't even know if you're going in, dude.
Like I said, I'll be out. I ain't tripping on nothing. Juanita, you don't have to talk.
All right, so it's important to note there's a couple times where Officer Duncan says, I don't know if they'll take you or I don't know if you're going in. So over the past probably a little over a year, 2 years, due to the jail capacity, the Cass County Jail, Cass County Sheriff's Department has turned away people that we've tried to arrest, and it's not just Fargo PD, it's also West Fargo and also their jurisdiction as well, where due to the severity of the offense, so like in this case, it's potentially a DUS warrant, where they won't take someone that's not violent or has a violent warrant because they want to keep a violent related warrant because they want to keep jail space open. So that's where you hear at least 2 instances where Officer Duncan says, I don't know if they're going to take you. All right, so it's important to note he's not arrested at this point. He's being detained. So he does not let Officer Duncan search him. Officer Duncan asks if he could search him. Says no. So at this point, the officer does not have legal authority to conduct a personal search over Mr. K at this point. So I don't know if Mr. K has a driver's license or identification card on him. That's one thing that we never get to. Like I said, eventually, due to the cold weather, he is put in the back, unsearched, but again, he's not under arrest at this point. Officer Duncan does stand outside with him for a little while just to observe him, trying to get dispatch to confirm the warrants. At this point, they're unconfirmed. He's asking dispatch to confirm them. So what that entails is they have to contact Cass County, and Cass County looks to see if that warrant is still valid. And then they'll get back to us and let us know if it's a valid warrant or not. Eventually, Officer Duncan gets back in the car and he starts to look at those photos. He does notice that in Kay's booking photo that he has a lazy eye. And he notices that the person in the back seat does not have a lazy eye. So this obviously throws Officer Duncan off slightly. He goes back to speak with Juanetta Foley, while Officer Adair stays back at the squad car to observe Mr. K. He has a conversation with Miss Foley, and then actually calls K Johnny. She does not correct him. They continue to talk about his warrants, and she says, we just went to court on Monday. Also tells Foley K gave him a fake name. She still does not correct him, so Officer Duncan is believing that this person is Johnny Cooper. Miss Foley is more concerned about providing Mr. K mental health care as opposed to potentially taking care of the warrant because, quote unquote, he's depressed.
Hang with him. Why is your boy lying about his name? I mean, I know why he's lying about his name, but why is he lying about his name?
Is he being detained?
He's probably going to be placed under arrest very shortly.
Should I talk to him?
No, not right now. In a second. But based on the way both of y'all are behaving, not right now.
He doesn't really know how to talk based off of his emotions. He's depressed right now, and he's going through a lot because of how the world is.
I hear you. The world's kind of a place these days, isn't it?
And he's depressed.
Yeah. I'm sorry to hear that. I'm not trying to make things worse, right?
His emotions, but he actually needs help.
Yep. And the reason I come at you guys the way I did is when I make a traffic stop and somebody jumps out of the car, I don't know what your intentions are. You could be St. Teresa or you could be, freaking Dahmer for all I know, right?
I understand.
Fair enough? Okay. Obviously, Johnny's got warrants. He's going to have to deal with those. What?
He's depressed and he actually needs help. I think we should take him to the hospital.
Okay, well, he's going to have to deal with his warrants first.
He needs
I can
help.
let the jail know
he
that.
He is dealing with his warrants. He has order.
Well, he's got warrants, so the court wants to talk to him sooner than later. Which means they said.
All right, so obviously I'm going to skip forward just a few minutes. Officer Duncan attempts to walk away from Miss Foley. They continue to have a conversation. She does get upset at Officer Duncan because obviously she believes that he needs medical help, not going to jail. But at some point, Officer Duncan tells Mr. K, that he's under arrest. He opens the door, says you're under arrest, and then you'll notice Mr. K's response, where it dawns on him that Officer Duncan says, Johnny, you are under arrest. He says, who? What's my name? In a very, obviously, surprised manner. Foley hears this because she's standing right there. He says, that's not his name, so you're arresting the wrong person. Eventually, Officer Duncan walks to the car, gets in the squad car, and has a conversation with Mr. K, asking him for a legit ID, shows Mr. K Johnny Cooper's mugshot, saying, who's this? And then there's a conversation, does that look like me? Officer Duncan says, yeah, kinda. And then K tells the officer to take his hood off at that time, which he doesn't. Officer Duncan asks Mr. K, do you have this tattoo? Because Johnny Cooper's got a visible tattoo on his arm. And basically Mr. K does not comply, does not answer those questions, just basically is saying, take me to jail, threatens a lawsuit.
Talking about your feelings are not important right now. You're at work, sir.
Yep, and my job
Same
is to
way,
arrest people.
you're
with
letting
felony
your
warrants.
feelings affect the fact that you're putting a depressed person
What we doing?
in jail.
Johnny, you're under arrest.
You said who?
You.
What's my name?
Johnny is your.
My name is Johnny.
That's your real.
His name
your
is not
name.
Johnny.
That's my name is Johnny.
Yep.
So you're arresting the wrong
Hey, Juanita.
person.
Okay, no, that's fine. Go ahead.
No.
I'm Johnny.
Alias. is the
Hey,
name you
my
gave
name.
me.
You said my name is. Take me to jail.
Come on. You can't keep putting a depressed person in jail because he doesn't know how to work through his emotions. Take him to Sanford Hospital so he can get help with his head.
Okay.
Please.
My name is Johnny. Let's go to Cass County. My name is Johnny.
Well, can you give me a legit ID then? Because the alias you gave
said
me.
my name is Johnny. Take me to jail. You don't want to do your job? Take me to jail. I promise you it should have been.
Who's this?
Oops, my bad.
Hold on. My name is Johnny, right? Does that look like me?
Kinda, yeah.
That looks like me. Hold on. Take my hood off. Take my hood off. I promise you, boy, you finna get a lawsuit and you're gonna lose your job. I promise you. You can't. Who thinks every person looks the same? You stupid.
Dude, you have no idea who I am, who my family is, who
I promise you, after you take me to
anything.
jail, after you take me to jail for false identification, after I spelled my in
Do
there,
you have this tattoo? Can I see if you have this tattoo?
Take me to jail. Take me to
If it's not you, it's not you. Can I see if you have that tattoo?
We gonna find out. How about you do that? Make that decision. Lose. Oh, that's gonna be a good lawsuit, my boy. I like that. I like.
Well,
those.
why does the name you gave me come back?
You wrote it down.
Yeah.
You wrote it down.
Yeah.
Yeah. So pull up the right person, my boy. Pull up the right person, because you finna get a lawsuit. I promise you that.
Okay, are you Emmanuel Toe? All these
You
names come back.
Detain me. Oh, I love this. I love this. Your department is gonna love this.
And so at this time, Miss Foley is standing at the door, his driver's door, and taps on it. He gets out to speak with her. At some point, Mr. K starts kicking the side window of the squad car. Officer Duncan then asks for his supervisor. Foley still does not correct or confirm K's identity with Officer Duncan, and Officer Duncan believes that his suspicions are correct, and you'll see why he believes that in a second here. He has not positively confirmed Mr. K as Johnny Cooper, and because of the distraction that Foley is causing, they decide to drive away to get away from her so that they can concentrate on doing a little bit more investigative work as opposed to dealing with Wynetta. So Officer Dare, who is one of the backup officers, while driving to the jail, has a phone conversation with Detective Luce, who is overhearing over the radio that we've been looking for Johnny Cooper for quite some time, for multiple reasons, and then starts to look into Johnny Cooper and Abenico K, and through that conversation with Officer Dare is not confident and doesn't suspect that Mr. K is Johnny Cooper. He thinks that it's Abenico K. So about that time, they decide to stop, pull over, and wait for Sergeant Mock, and that happens in the Burger King parking lot near the Cass County Jail.
I want to talk about a solution, sir. I just told you this man is depressed. He needs actual help.
Just so you know, I'm Rook 2, so starting right now isn't going to change
I didn't know you were
anything.
recording since you came up talking to me.
Always
because
am.
cameras
Always
are
will be.
everywhere.
Exactly.
Exactly.
So
can you please
right now,
I'm
he
just
is
trying to
telling me
ask you a
all
question.
kinds of stories about who he is or isn't. It would be really helpful if you could tell me who he really is.
I just did.
Who is he?
And you did too.
Johnny Cooper.
You told me you searched his real name and you figured out who he was.
Yep, he's
when
Johnny
you first
Cooper,
came
right?
up to me, you said, I searched his name.
Yep. So is he or
But
is he
he's
not
lying
Johnny
to
Cooper?
me about his name. You came up to me and you said he's lying to me about
So
his
I'm right.
name.
He's Johnny Cooper.
You're playing mind games. And you
No, I'm
told me
asking
you
you a
didn't want me
legitimate
to play
question.
mind games
I'm
with
asking you a
you.
legitimate question.
Because you came up to me and you said, dude is lying about his name. You said dude is lying about his name. Yeah, I searched his real name and I found his real identity.
Mm-hmm.
So why is he lying about his name? And I told you, he is depressed.
He's lying because he's depressed.
I'm sorry, I did it again.
He's lying because he's depressed.
He does not know how to work through his emotions, so he's acting like a child right now because he's going through an identity crisis. He needs actual help. He needs to be taken to Sanford Hospital where they can help him with his mental issues. Same way we are talking calmly through our personal feelings, same way you said you don't know why you feel like we hate you. But that's not the issue. We're real people. And he feels like you're a robot.
I know, I heard him
So
say
he
it.
needs actual mental help. He needs to be taken to a hospital. We can't keep walking around feeling like we're robots.
There are so many ways this could have gone easier. And I don't know why we had to go this road.
Because we're all different people.
That's true, but at the end of the day, we all want the easier route generally, right?
Of course. That's why I'm trying to talk
Okay.
to you about making it easier route.
We're gonna have to hobble him soon if he keeps taking my windows. We're gonna have to do. Hey!
What are we doing?
You're not gonna kick my car.
What are we doing? Take me to jail.
Stop kicking my
What are we
car.
doing? Take me to jail.
7-Eleven Central. We'll probably take a zebra unit down here now too. I got one that's trying to kick the window out of my car.
Why don't we just drive away?
We're about to.
Okay.
We're gonna have to just drive off.
How's the
because it doesn't-
supervisor we just did?
Yeah. I'm trying to figure out who he is yet, but
You already have figured out who
okay,
he is.
perfect. That's all I need to know. He's telling me, and I'm trying to give as many options to tell me.
And so that conversation, from the perspective of Officer Duncan, doesn't provide him any additional clarity as to who that is. Obviously, we have Ms. Foley saying that he's got a personality issue, identity issue. doesn't know who he is, he's depressed. So in the officer's mind, it's like, okay, is it Abenico or is it K? So that doesn't necessarily happen. And then when he comes around the back of the squad car, he says, I'm trying to figure out. She says, you already figured out who it is. So again, that doesn't necessarily help the officer make the decision when in his mind, he's thinking he's dealing with Johnny Cooper. So they do get in the car, they drive away. He has a couple conversations with Sergeant Mock. They do pull over and wait for Sergeant Mock to get on scene. Sergeant Mock determines very quickly that Kay is not Johnny Cooper. He is who he says he is. He asks him to, he unhandcuffs him, tells him to get out of the squad car repeatedly. In fact, Mr. K says, can I get out of the car? And absolutely, but then at that point, he refuses to get out of the car. There is basically a conversation, an argument that happens between the officers on scene for the next 40 minutes to get Mr. K out of the car. Like I said, there's ample opportunity for Mr. K to get out multiple times. Every time they leave a squad car door open, he shuts it. And again, they have to devise a plan where they pull him physically out of the car.
You go? Be honest, roll it. No. Yes.
Hey, Benigo.
What's up?
Hey, Sergeant Mock, Fargo Police.
Oh, thank you. That's the right guy I want to talk to because he a dickhead. He don't know what the fuck he talking about.
Can you look at me quick? I'm just trying to confirm identities, okay?
I'm not Johnny Cooper. But y'all can take me to Cass County, and I'm gonna sue the fuck out y'all.
Okay.
Yep. I had a lazy eye. I had surgery in 2022.
You do. Okay.
Yep.
All right. You want to roll the window up real quick?
I apologize, I missed that colorful language. So Sergeant Mock quickly determines that he's not. They go back, have a discussion. Sergeant Mock walks up, takes the handcuffs on, basically arrests him, tells him he's free to go. And as already mentioned, they have to develop a plan to get him out. They do offer him many times to drive him somewhere. He does not cooperate with that request. And eventually, once we get him out, then he does ask for a ride. By this time, Sergeant Mock is saying, well, now if he gets back in the car, he's not going to get out again. So we decline to give him a ride anywhere, and he walks away. Mr. K does not mention any injuries to the officers on scene or the sergeant, nor are there any visible injuries to him. Time of stop, as I mentioned, is 8:47. He's placed under arrest at 9:07, so that's 20 minutes. That is not unreasonable. From the time of stop, Sergeant Mock arrives at 9:27, and he's released 5 minutes later at 9:32. From 9:32, it's about another, from the time of stop to when he is released, it's 45 minutes.
It's been a whole hour and continuing. And continuing. It don't take that long to write up nothing.
Okay.
The f you talking about, Sergeant Lucas? You think you can just come in my face and lie to me?
Lie about what?
Give me your paperwork. Give me some paperwork.
We don't have it for you.
Well, shit, I don't know what
We're
to
going to
tell
step out, okay?
We're not going to do nothing. Get off of me. Get off of me. Get off of me.
Okay, we're
Get off
done.
of me.
We need you to step
Give
out
me
of the
some
car.
paperwork.
We don't have the paperwork.
Stall the car, please.
Give me some
You just need to
paperwork.
step out of the car.
Give me some paperwork.
We'd like to give you a ride if you're not willing to go.
Give me some paperwork.
Benico,
I want some
stop.
paperwork, and then you can drop me off.
We don't have paperwork.
Please step out. Just legs first so you don't hit yourself, man. We don't want you to hurt.
Yep.
Please stop.
Shut the door, please, Logan.
Yep.
Y'all see this?
Yep. All right, you are free to go. Thank
Y'all see
you.
this?
Yep.
I want a ride. That's what I want. I want a ride. You're not going to give me a ride? You're not going to give me a ride. After he just violated
We're
me.
done. We're done.
Give me a ride.
We're done with this.
Give me a ride.
No.
All right. I want the cash out.
So that's basically the end of the encounter. So when the complaint investigation is done, it's given to myself, I review it, and then I also give it to Chief Zabolski, he reviews it, and then it's given back to the Professional Accountability Unit. They present it to the exec staff, which is captain and above. We make our recommendation as far as whether the complaint is sustained, and if it is sustained, what type of a disciplinary recommendation we're recommending. In this case, we recommended exonerated, meaning that that the officer's actions were legal, justified, and within policy. The chief concurred. The chief has sent 2 letters to Abenico K based off of both of these complaints, and those letters have been returned because we do not have a good address for Mr. K. So we looked at there's no foundation for racism. Actually, Officer Duncan does come from a multiracial family. That's where you hear him say, "You don't know me, you don't know my family." He did have the legal authority to stop the vehicle. He had the legal authority to detain the driver, speak to the passenger, which Mr. K was wrong with, where he said you don't have to speak to the officer initially, right? You get in the car, you don't even have to speak to him. That's not true. If the officer asks you a question, you do have to reply. So just to correct that. Obviously, they have the right to remain silent, but the officer can ask the questions as they deem fit. Ask for the driver's ID, it's not there. We have to definitively prove the ID. Once it was confirmed, he was released. Officer Duncan has approximately 2 years of experience. In my opinion, we all agreed there could have been other methods to confirm Mr. K's ID, such as going to the North Dakota Department of Transportation website and pulling up the driver's license photo for Mr. K, and to try to compare that with the photos the mug photos, as well as looking at some other vital comparisons, taking advantage of, Mr. K obviously said, "Pull down my hoodie, look there." But obviously we have dealing with, Officer Duncan is relatively new. He has some inexperience. He was distracted by Juanetta. I think that was distracting him, and obviously the hostility from Mr. K, rightly so. He was upset. We're all working against the officer. So that is in its entirety with the complaint. Does the board have any questions in regards to this complaint?
I have a question. The 2 names that were mixed up here that came up in the system, has that been corrected?
I will need to follow back on that because obviously Johnny Cooper is still using Abenico K and other aliases. So those will likely stay in the system for Johnny Cooper, so that if anyone deals with Johnny Cooper and he provides a false name, so that the officers are alerted that potentially that Mr. Cooper might provide. I believe there was a couple other names that were listed there that had been thrown out, so it just wasn't Abenico K's name. However, there might be some alerts that we can remove, and I'll have to verify if those have been removed or not.
Okay, and I want to say too, the issue of him not being able to tell the difference between the 2 photos, that would be equivalent of me saying you and Sergeant Gamrett look the same.
Understand.
I have a question. You mentioned that Officer Duncan had the rights to detain Mr. K. What behooves me is, does detaining a person equates to cuffing the person?
It can.
And why is that so?
Well, depending on the circumstances, obviously if there is violence associated, which in this case there's not. However, Mr. K does get upset, rightly so. I mean, I'm not questioning why he's upset. We have I don't want to say modified, but we have adjusted our our temporary detention policy, and we've made it more clear when officers can put handcuffs on people. We just can't say for officer safety reasons. That's vague, and it doesn't meet the vision of what we want to accomplish, right? So in this case, the officer believed that the warrant that he was who he said he was, that he was, I guess, Johnny Cooper. And I think he made the decision that I got him under handcuffs. And when I tell him under arrest, then I don't have to take him back out in arrest or place the handcuffs on him. So there's no bright line rule of when we place handcuffs on people. Our policy does specify a little bit more, makes it more clear. With there's, obviously there's a disturbance, violence, a lot of people around where the officer might feel that they need to control the scene and where they can place handcuffs on people. But the expectation is that once you determine that those handcuffs are no longer needed, they're supposed to be released.
Well, it seemed that both sides, there was a escalation, and I'm wondering if the police officer could have approached it differently.
Absolutely. I mean, I think Officer Duncan is a good officer, but he's got 2 years of experience. If I were to put Sergeant Gamrant or myself or an officer with 10 years of experience, would there have been different results? Probably, but I can't say that with 100% certainty. Each officer handles things differently, and I'm sure that if there had been a 5-year veteran, 6-year, 10-year, that it would have been a different outcome.
I mean, I'm just watching it, like, immediately when he's screaming from the car, like, I'm already anxious. So, I mean, I don't, I'm not a police officer for a good reason, but that seemed like heated, when he got pulled over and he was yelling, and it is, I think, I thought he seemed initially like he was okay, but that was a lot of emotion going on.
It was, and I didn't say this because I don't think in today's, what is a normal traffic stop, right? How do we even define that anymore, right? More often than not, traffic stops are very cordial. However, we do run across people who are upset for one reason or another. They don't agree with being stopped or don't agree with being ticketed. In this case, Mr. K was not ticketed for any traffic violation, and that was part of the reason why he was upset and didn't want to get out of the car. You heard him say that he wanted the paperwork. Well, there was no paperwork to give him. And what he also didn't understand is that in order to do a report, we have to go either back to a squad car to do the report or go to the station. And then that report just isn't magically generated. It has to go through a process which could take up to 24 to 48 or 72 hours to be completed. So there's some procedural issues that I think obviously compounded to Mr. K's frustration about why he didn't want to get out of the car. And that kind of goes into the second complaint, and I'll be willing to go into that if you want. But again, I want to make sure that I've answered all your questions the best that I can regarding this one.
And did I hear this correct, though? There was something with the eyes, right?
Yes, so
the mug shot was different, like
Benico K's mug shot, there he notices what he described as a lazy eye. Mr. K had surgery to correct that, which is not relayed to the officer at that point until it clearly comes out at that point where he says, I had surgery to correct my lazy eye in 2020 or whatever year it was, 2022.
2022.
So when we interviewed Officer Duncan, that was for his, for him, is that he was focusing so much on the lazy eye, and then Mr. K did not have the lazy eye as he was talking with him. So that's what kind of hung him up on, is this a Benico or is this Johnny Cooper, so it was.
I do have a question.
Yes.
Actually, maybe two. The first one is just clarification in terms of the what I was hearing. I think I heard you say that there was a policy change as a result of this situation.
We've had a number of, and it wasn't just this incident. I believe there's another complaint that's in the works right now. But we've had other incidents where we have detained people. We are trying to educate the officers to make sure they understand between detention and arrest.
That's actually my my
They're
second
two
question.
different, they're completely different things, detention and arrest. Detention is I temporarily arrest you, I may not have probable cause to arrest you. I am working towards that, and there might be a reason why I put you in handcuffs, because either you're aggressive, you're verbally aggressive, or you're physically aggressive. A lot of signs where, you know, you might display that, or officer might think that you're gonna fight with them. So we would put them under handcuffs, and that's temporary detention. So we, the chief, I shouldn't say we, the chief, in cooperation with the exec staff and the department, we modified that policy to make it more clear on when and when you can't or when you shouldn't put handcuffs on people.
Is that something that can be shared, showing
I
the
believe
before
it's,
and after?
I believe it's online right now. I'd have to double check. Most of our policies are on the Fargo Police website. So I'd have to double check to see if that one is specifically on there. But again, our policy manual is subject to open record.
Sure.
So we can release any part of that at any time.
I'm
So
just looking for like clarification
Yep.
between the before and after.
Yeah,
you know,
I
to see what that looks like.
might be able to define the difference between the two, and
Okay.
what modifications were made.
Yeah, and I think you answered the second question. I was really just looking at in terms of, you know, the response of citizens, or maybe the rights of citizens, you know, the difference between being detained and being arrested, because I don't know that that's really very clear. I know that the situation with the handcuffs, that was, you know, maybe a little bit of a fuzzy line, which then again resulted in the policy change. But I'm just curious, you know, when somebody is informed, you know, you're not being arrested, you're being detained, but then, you know, like how long can that last for? You know, is that, I imagine that that's also in policy.
Actually, there is a Supreme Court. I mean, there is no magic time limit. So if I stop a car and my intent is to write a traffic ticket, so what is a reasonable length of time for me to write a traffic ticket, right? I can't unduly extend a traffic stop. So let's say I suspect that there is maybe contraband within the car, and I request a drug dog to come to the scene, but the drug dog is going to take a half an hour to get there. Well, that's going to unduly extend the traffic stop. So if I held that person for that amount of time within the city of Fargo, it's likely going to be a bad stop. And so there's Supreme Court decision on that issue. In this case, where it gets gray is trying to properly identify the individual who potentially has warrants. And the Cass County warrant is a felony warrant. It's not a misdemeanor warrant. So I did not mention that earlier, but that obviously what raised the ante of this, that it was I believe it was a felony drug warrant that they were trying to confirm the identity of Mr. K. I said the DUS warrant, like I said, that we get turned, I mean, we've had those turned away from Cass County Jail. But the felony warrants are typically more serious, where we would want to make sure that we take that person into custody and bring them to jail.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a couple questions. What kind of charge is a DUS?
It's a misdemeanor. It's a Class B misdemeanor.
Okay, and so I'm curious about this Cooper. It seems to me he's not only using this K as an alias. Is he assuming the identity of another person?
Well, I think he's probably given names of others, because I believe the officer, I can't remember the first name, but I believe there was a last name of Tope that was mentioned in there, that he's like, well, are you this person, Mr. Tope or whatever? So it wouldn't surprise me that I haven't looked at Johnny Cooper's information in the CAT RMS to see how many aliases that he has. But that's one of the complications when we deal with people that don't have IDs, to try to properly identify them. So like I said, there's other ways we can use tattoos, physical description. Like if I ask you your social security number, but I don't know if if you tell me your social security number and I'm looking at a Beneco or Johnny Cooper, and the social security number you give me isn't Johnny Cooper's, but it's a Beneco K's. Okay, now I just probably established with more certainty that you are who you say you are. So I think some of those things could have been done had it been a more experienced officer or he taken the time to do it. But obviously, there was the animosity, the hostility between the two of them that I'm not sure that he would have answered his questions. Can I definitively say that? No, I can't. But certainly by the interaction between those two in the squad car, it did not seem like it was going to be a very a conversation that resulted in trying to come to a resolution of who he was.
Okay. Do you think a more senior officer would have handcuffed this person with a possible DUS charge? Is that a typical action?
Possibly. I can't definitively say that. Like I said, we're not, there's no bright line rule of when if I know I'm going to arrest you, I'm going to put handcuffs on you. But in this case, he was detained, right? So detained with the thought that he had confirmed warrants. And as opposed to fighting with someone later to say, Mr. Hoganson, you are now under arrest. You're in the back of my car, and now you're going to fight with me because now I have to get you out. That has happened often. But again, there's no bright line rule to say, I'm going to handcuff you or no, I'm going to handcuff you. And I think the modifications to the policy, and we've educated the officers on that, it makes it very more clear of like, okay, just because you're detaining someone does not automatically mean you are getting handcuffed.
Okay. It seems like after he was handcuffed and in the back, that's when he got more agitated. And I don't know, I'm not the expert, but it seemed to me that he was in a mental health crisis and needed some help. Do you think a more senior officer would reach that conclusion, or does this person need to go somewhere or taken somewhere where we can receive help?
You know, that's, I guess, without me being there, and actually, hindsight being 2020, I don't think I can adequately ask that or answer that question of like, what would I do? Obviously, I wasn't there. It seemed like Mr. K got upset because Officer Duncan was talking to Miss Foley, because you'd hear him in the background saying, you don't have to talk to him, you don't have to talk to him, yelling from the squad car. So that seemed like that was more upsetting to him. He seemed very patient up until the point where, again, he was outside talking to Wynetta, and then he started to kick at the door. So I just seen what I would have saw there. I don't know if I would have automatically said that he was in a mental health crisis and that he needed to go to the emergency room for an evaluation, because people kick squad car doors more often than you would think, and they yell and scream at us and use profanity more often than what you would think. I could probably go back and find many videos of when there's colorful language being thrown at the officers. So not that justifies it, but I don't think that I would take him in for a mental health evaluation, seeing what I saw there.
Yeah, you can't force someone to seek mental health treatment unless they're a danger to themselves or others.
I'm not suggesting
Yeah.
force him. He just looked like he needed some help.
Yeah.
And I believe basically that the reason why he maybe escalated the situation was because of this misidentity, and him telling the officer that is not me, and yet the officer continued to say that is him. And even though he didn't comply to show the officer maybe a marking on his arm to further identify him, I think things could have been done differently.
Well, he was agitated from the beginning, though. Like, from the time she got out of the car and said something, the officer hadn't even barely said anything.
I
He was
agree
yelling.
with that point.
He was already
But there's a point by which you
revved
can respectively approach someone and try to de-escalate the situation, especially an officer who's been involved in this type of situation.
Yeah, like I said, I don't disagree. I think any number of officers would have handled it differently. But I don't.
Because, yeah, there are some things here. Like I said, it's always, if we want to really get to the nuts and bolts of being misidentified, been a history of that. So basically to not take that seriously is again something that needs to be looked at.
And I guess I disagree with that. He didn't take it seriously. I think that the officer does understand the ramification of needing to identify someone. I mean, when you're talking about Fourth Amendment violations, we don't take that lightly. And the officer even admitted before he got in the squad car is that he wasn't fully confident that he knew who he was, but obviously the situation where Miss Foley is distracting him, causing other things. I would have had one of my backup officers come deal with her as opposed to me trying to deal with her. So I think there's some other options, like what you're alluding to. There are other options. Any number of different officers would have probably done something different. However, I may not like it, but that doesn't mean it violated policy. And that's the point that I'm trying to make, is that the executive staff and the chief of police did not feel that there was a policy violation as a result of the officer's actions. Is there things that he can learn from? Absolutely. And I think that happens in any encounter with law enforcement, with the public, is you're always able to learn and take takeaways, both good and bad, from that encounter.
And can I ask, how far was he let out of the squad car from where he was originally picked up from?
It's across 13th, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's
that
just right across 13th.
I don't know the exact distance.
I think that hotel is by Cash-Wise up, you know how they have those hotels along that edge around Cash-Wise? I think, if I recall correctly, that might be.
How far
And then
is that
across
to-
13th is Burger King.
Oh, okay.
That Burger King lot.
Because it's pretty cold here.
Yeah, it is.
Quarter-mile estimate.
But I do understand where Conrad is coming from, because we don't all look alike.
Absolutely, I agree.
Okay. Any other questions from the board?
I have another question. So the conclusion here was this complaint there was no foundation and the officer was exonerated?
I don't want to say there's a foundation. Obviously, there's a foundation for the complaint.
Okay.
We looked at all the facts.
What's the terminology when you close it out?
It exonerated.
Exonerated.
Right.
I'd be curious to see if you could present at future meetings complaints that turned out to be legitimate, and the learnings that you guys get from some of those too.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm trying to find my sticky note here. So in 2023, and I'm sorry, just real quickly, because I know I don't want to waste your time, but in 2023, we had 102 formal complaints. Of those formal complaints, 102, 38 of them were sustained for a variety of reasons.
Roughly a third.
Yeah. So I don't know if you remember, but I had previously done complaint presentations. But again, it takes a little bit to compile that information and put it into a presentable. But again, if that's something that you wish to have presented, we'd be more than happy to put that together.
I do. It's a trust thing. You show, okay, here's something that really shouldn't have happened, and then here's another one. So I'd like to see both sides.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, none of those are, out of transparency, they're all open record. We might have to redact some information. So if you're a complainant on one of those, your information is not subject to release. So we'd have to obviously redact some of that information.
Okay, sure.
If it came down to it.
Anything else? No? One more thing for the board. Our next meeting is May 9th. The chief will not be in town on the 9th. He was unable to be at this meeting. He's at training. And I'm wondering if the board would be okay if we move the date to the following Thursday, which is the 16th of May, in order for the chief to be present for our meeting. Yeah?
Yeah.
Is that all right with everyone?
It's good.
Yeah? And,
Works for me.
okay. All right, so if there's no other business, all right, then this meeting of the Police Advisory and Oversight Board stands adjourned, and our next scheduled meeting will be May 16th. And I believe that'll be here at City Chambers. Appreciate it. Thank you.